Welcome to today's explainer. Have you ever wondered why two people can say the exact same sentence, yet somehow convey completely different meanings? Well, today we're going to uncover the hidden mechanics of human communication. We'll explore why the actual words we say are really just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to decode the invisible engine that truly drives how we connect with everyone around us. To kick things off, there's this brilliant quote from our source material by William Butler Yeats. He said, "Think like a wise man, but communicate in the language of the people." And honestly, this perfectly sets the stage for our exploration today. It hits the nail on the head regarding the ultimate challenge we all face, right? Like, how do we translate our complex, internal thoughts into clear, understandable messages that actually resonate with the people listening to us? Okay, before we map out the rest of the explainer, I've got to share a statistic from the source data that is absolutely going to change how you view every single conversation you have from here on out. Are you ready? When we communicate, only 7% of our message relies on the actual words spoken. Literally just 7%. The vast majority of our meaning is carried by forces completely outside of our vocabulary. Crazy, right? So, to help us understand exactly how that all works, here is our toolkit for today. We'll be covering the anatomy of a message, mastering verbal communication, the power of nonverbal cues, impactful visual communication, and finally, choosing the right medium. All right, let's jump in. Section 1, Anatomy of a Message, the basic loop. Let's look at the continuous cycle that forms the absolute foundation of any interaction we have. You see, effective communication is never a one-way street. It's actually a three-part loop. First comes transmitting, where the sender conveys a clear message. Imagine a manager asking an employee, let's call him Sushant, for a sales report. Step 2 is listening, where the receiver processes the message, maybe nodding along in affirmation. But here's the catch. The loop isn't closed without step 3, which is feedback. This is where Sushant responds, confirming he'll have the report done by Friday afternoon. Without that explicit feedback, the sender literally never truly knows if the message was actually understood. Moving right along, Section 2, Mastering Verbal Communication, the tip of the iceberg. Now that we've got our baseline loop established, let's examine that 7% tip of our communication iceberg I mentioned earlier. While verbal communication is undoubtedly our go-to tool for organizing and sharing complex ideas, it has some strict advantages alongside some pretty notable pitfalls. On the plus side, it builds relationships, encourages teamwork, and allows for that prompt feedback we just talked about. But on the flip side, we've all sent a message that was completely misunderstood just because of one poorly chosen word. Plus, written forms can cause frustrating delays in that feedback loop, and diverse accents or speaking paces can definitely make spoken words difficult to process immediately. So, how do we avoid those pitfalls? Well, it's not just about opening your mouth and letting words fall out. Imagine delivering a critical project update to your team. Your vocabulary has to be precise. Your pitch needs to be controlled. You've got to know exactly when to project your volume to highlight a big win or soften your tone to discuss a setback. You have to actively plan what you're going to say, maintain a rhythm that keeps people engaged, and deliver the whole shebang with physical confidence. And by that, I mean making solid eye contact, standing up straight, and deliberately using gestures. Which brings us to Section 3, the power of nonverbal, the massive unseen force. Speaking of physical confidence, we are now plunging way below the surface to reveal the true, unspoken engine driving human connection. The sheer scale of what goes unsaid is honestly staggering. According to our data, a massive 93% of our everyday communication happens entirely outside the literal meaning of words. Look at this. 55% is purely body language, the movements of your face, your arms, your posture. Another 38% comes from vocal elements, like your tone and those strategic pauses. And the words themselves, again, just a tiny 7%. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept called paralanguage. Even when we are speaking words, we're simultaneously using these nonverbal elements. Your tone, pitch, volume, and rhythm provide these subtle yet incredibly powerful clues to how you're really feeling. For instance, a loud, fast tone might show intense enthusiasm, right? While a soft, hesitant tone might indicate a lack of confidence, which can completely override whatever positive, confident words you might actually be saying. Let's anchor this in a high-stakes reality that we all know, a job interview. You can actually weaponize these nonverbal cues to project trustworthiness before you even answer a single question. Try maintaining steady eye contact and a polite, even tone. Plant your feet flat on the floor, keep your back firmly against the chair, and whatever you do, do not slouch. Make sure to smile and nod at the right times to show you're relaxed and engaged. Trust me, your body is going to speak volumes before your resume even gets a second glance. All right, Section 4, Impactful Visual Communication, showing, not just telling.
Let's shift gears and explore visual communication. This relies on the simple biological fact that the human mind processes images incredibly quickly. Just think about basic traffic signs for a second. A red circle with a line through it or a speed limit number instantly and universally conveys critical rules to drivers moving at high speeds, all without a single spoken word. That right there is the absolute gold standard of clear visual messaging.
Now, I'm sure we've all suffered through a terrible, cluttered presentation at some point. To make sure your visual aids actually enhance comprehension, rather than, cause a massive headache, you need to be ruthless. Follow a logical hierarchy and leave plenty of negative space. Seriously, don't clutter the layout. Avoid overwhelming your audience with messy 3D charts or throwing in 6 different graphs just to make one single point. Be highly selective, use simple universal illustrations, and please use color sparingly. Only use it to highlight what truly matters. And finally, Section 5, choosing the right medium, delivering the message. You could craft the absolute perfect message, but if you send it the wrong way, it's just going to fall flat. Every modern medium has its own unique strengths. Face-to-face is immediate and deeply personal, making it completely unmatched for building true connections because you get all those nonverbal cues we talked about. But for complex details, an email creates that clear, permanent record you're going to need. Video calls are brilliant for bridging the gap for long-distance teams by keeping those visual cues intact, while a simple phone call remains king for urgent matters where texting is just way too slow. Ultimately, choosing the right method depends entirely on the context, the urgency, and the specific audience of your message. Wow, we've covered a whole lot of ground today, everything from the basic feedback loop all the way to the power of visuals and mediums. But I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Now that you know the actual words you speak make up only 7% of the equation, how are you going to redesign your own invisible engine of communication? Tomorrow, when you walk into a room, how will you speak to the people around you without ever actually opening your mouth? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.